Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we are sitting with a man who makes me feel small, which doesn't happen all that often. This comedian's been to Eau Claire before and made us famous on Amazon. If you watch his special, the Plus pops up, the Lismore pops up, and I'm like, wow, I actually recognize these places. This is pretty cool because we never get this platform. Our guest today has been a comedian for a long time. He's also put out a book, which I believe is popular. I haven't read it, sorry. Hopefully I can get to it at some point.
Sure, there's a lot of books out there.
Welcome to the show, Sam Tallent.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be back in Eau Claire.
Yeah, when was the last time you were here?
I believe I was here last year in December when the Plus was shut down.
Yeah.
I did a show in like a VFW hall through Cullen, your station manager, who's the person who brought me here originally and subsequently. And it lacked the charm of the Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of it was in like where they would do a meat raffle. You know, so it was like linoleum floors, those kind of paneled classroom ceilings.
Yeah.
And everyone who looked there seemed like they might have had a glass eyeball or they were drinking due to some war trauma, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the fun, like, hey, we're going to have a couple spotted cows at the Plus and eat a very bad pizza.
Hey, it's totally different now at the Plus.
Really?
Yeah, because after the pandemic, they renovated a whole bunch of it.
That's good.
Yeah, so the flooring got redone.
I can't wait to see what the new look Plus looks like.
Yeah, it's going to be
reimagined Plus.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different, and I think there's different ingredients too. So the pizza might be fantastic now.
Wow, well that wouldn't be hard to be better than the pizza they had before.
Yeah. So what? Cullen posted something when he was like, "Look who's coming back, my homie." That's some kind of story. It showed that you had posted. I don't know if you had read that about him getting you a hotel room or something. Can you tell me what this story is? Just because I'm super curious because we all love Cullen.
Yeah, I think I was driving from Milwaukee or Green Bay to do a show in Eau Claire, and I drove through the night, and I arrived at. I Googled cheapest hotel rooms in Wisconsin.
In all of the state.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I put in one coordinate where I was and then the end coordinate, and I Googled hotel rooms in between. And then I found a room in the Wisconsin Dells, which I did not know what it was. It was a $12 hotel room, and I was like, awesome, I can sleep there, wake up in the morning, go to Eau Claire. And I got there and I knock on the door at the hotel room, and this gentleman comes out in a bathrobe behind the glass. And he's like, no. And I was holding up my phone reservation. I have a reservation. And then he was like, no. And I was like, dude, I have a reservation. Please just let me in. I've been driving all night. And then I heard a woman yell something, and I think Farsi maybe. And then a bunch of dogs were let loose. And then there was just a bunch of slavering dogs at the door behind the glass, barking and biting at me. So I debated calling the police because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to sleep in my car. I'm huge. Right. So I just drove to Eau Claire with the intent that maybe I could crash at Cullen's house or one of the comics here. And then they were like, no. So Cullen somehow got me into that hotel across the street from the Plus at 5:30 a.m. and got me an early check-in. He just totally took care of everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, Cullen's the man. So
Cullen's a great guy.
How did you
He's so sincere.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's doing something for Eau Claire that shouldn't be happening.
No one should ever come here for stand-up comedy. No, Eau Claire's a good place, man. I almost lived here for 3 years. My wife she's a doctor, and her number one residency choice was the Mayo Clinic. So there was a period where I thought that, if all my wife's dreams came true, I would be in Eau Claire for 3 years, and I was never, no offense to Eau Claire, but I was really happy that her dreams didn't come true.
I think actually, let me see. I think I have a sound bite. I was listening to an interview and I was like, what are you talking about?
She's our first year resident in Fort Collins. We're in Fort Collins now.
My brother's living there.
Oh yeah? Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's a great city.
He's liking it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we got in there instead of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. The Mayo Clinic sniffed around her.
For the residency.
Yeah, I was like, baby, I love you. I want you to be successful, but
you're close to family too, right?
I listened to that and I was like, thank God he's coming back.
No, I like Eau Claire, but just living
rad.
Here, the big issue would be the lack of an airport. I have to drive to Minneapolis when I want to fly out, and I fly out every weekend for work.
Sure.
So it would have been really far away from the That's how I'm going to frame this for the good people of Eau Claire. Not that I didn't want to live here in this gray place.
It's a charming spot, but it doesn't have everything that Denver has.
It's great. It's lovely. I'm number one, Eau Claire all the way. I've been railroaded.
Okay, I want to know. So I've listened to a little bit of your story, and I've tried to gather, but on a lot of the podcasts that you have, including your own podcast, which is Chubby Behemoth, correct?
Yeah.
It's a lot of comedians laughing and talking about all kinds of different things rather than telling like a full story. So it's kind of hard to like pick up on your actual story.
Yeah.
So are you from Colorado? Did you grow up in Colorado?
I grew up in eastern Colorado, in Elizabeth, Colorado, in a town of less than 1,000 people. I lived there until I was 18, then moved to Denver to pursue improv comedy and to attend college loosely, but.
Yeah, so you used to play football growing up, and you played a lot of music. When did comedy come into play?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of like home videos of me, like 2 or 3 years old, like barely walking, barely talking, like wearing this little strange tuxedo that my mother would put on me and dance me around like a little fat doll. And I would like slide in on my knees into the kitchen and be like, I just flew in from Vegas. Boy, are my arms tired. So there hasn't really been a part of me, like I don't have a memory of not wanting to do stand-up. As soon as I became conscious of being a person, it was already kind of like decided that I was going to do some kind of comedy. Not necessarily stand-up. I thought it'd be more like Second City, like sketch improv, but I always knew I was going to be some kind of entertainer on stage.
Okay, so
as insane as that sounds, as like as self-mythologizing and I don't want to say pretentious, but definitely grating as that sounds, this was as like always just what the plan was.
You knew everyone was going to laugh and clap for you the whole rest of your life.
Yeah, and like it worked, you know. I was successful in school as far as being funny, but not being the class clown. I was no bouffon, you know. I wasn't a ham about it. I got my stuff in. The teachers liked it because it was pretty highbrow. I was never like competing with David Brew, who would like, you know, like gag on a banana in class. That was one of his big bits, and I was like, that's below me.
and then there's still all the low sex humor that comes through in the specials and everything else. You have to come back to it at some point.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that on stage. Like I'll do anything I have to survive on stage. That's a whole different thing. But you know, that's a knife fight in the mud compared to being in like a 10th grade classroom and you know, like doing fart noises. Like that's fine, but where do you go from there? You know.
Apparently you have to get on a stage. So how much of a performance is changed for that, where you're like, this isn't working, you switch to different material, versus how much do you just kind of like have set up? Because when you do a special, I imagine it's kind of like, this is exactly what I plan on doing and you follow through with it. But on any given night, I'm sure you kind of bounce around, right? Well,
the one we shot here was Waiting for Death to Claim Us, which was my first special. It's on Amazon for free. And excuse me, in that one, it was like more of a tour documentary. It was 13 cities, and Eau Claire was one of them. And I came in here, I think the Thursday or Wednesday, right before America shut down. It was like March 13th, and America shut, I think, the 17th in 2020.
Yeah.
So it was like we were just getting the initial reports of like, okay, the governor of Minnesota has limited gatherings to 500 people. And I was like, yes, I'm not going to draw 500. Everything's going to be fine, you know?
Yeah.
So when we were crossing over from Wisconsin into Minnesota, if you look at that footage, we didn't know that we were on like, you know, the edge of a cataclysm. It was packed.
Yeah.
You know, I'm giving people noogies. I think I fish hooked a kid that was there. Like I had no precaution whatsoever. I was rolling my eyes very loudly. And then we saw what happened 5 days later.
Yeah.
So anyway, to answer your good question, yes, the new special that I just filmed in Cincinnati was all jokes. But the best part of stand-up is you know if it's good or bad the whole time. Like if they're not laughing, you're blowing it, you know?
Sure.
Unless you're one of those comics that wants people to think up when you're up there, which is like... just really drives me insane. But yeah, so typically when you're filming a special, it's jokes. But that one, there was a lot more slap and tickle. There was a lot more like goofing around because we had 13 shows from which to cull the footage.
Yeah. Well, the special you just talked about that you did in Cincinnati, where can people find that? Because I didn't see that immediately anyways.
No, I filmed it last weekend, so it's not out.
Oh, it's not out yet.
Yeah, but it should be out December 26th on Shane Gillis's YouTube page.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to have to go find that YouTube page. We'll share it. We'll share it after it comes out.
Please do, yeah.
So when you're 18, you moved to Denver, is that what you said, to do improv? Tell me.
Yeah, because I was going to play football, but then I hurt myself. So I couldn't go play football. So then I enrolled in Metropolitan State College of Denver. And my mom signed me up for improv classes as a graduation present at the Bovine Metropolis. And I just like dove right into that at 18.
Yeah, but the college wasn't for performing in any kind of way. It was just like a regular 4-year bachelor's type thing.
Yeah, it's America's largest commuter campus is in Denver. It has the University of Colorado Denver, it has Community College of Denver, and it has Metropolitan State College, now University of Denver. And there couldn't have been any like less of a collegiate feeling to it. Because I always got jealous. I go visit my friends who were going to school in Fort Collins or Boulder at the big universities, and like just seeing the access that they had to, like a convivial, fraternal atmosphere, living in dorms, all that stuff. There was none of that where I went.
Yeah, just because there were so many different schools, so there wasn't really loyalty to.
Well, you didn't live on campus, so you didn't know.
Okay,
and then also,
sure.
like Metro really prides itself on graduating people older than 30, and also like I think they graduate the most Latino women in like all of Western United States. So it's a real big second chance opportunity school.
Yeah.
It's the road runners, so the joke was always if you go to Metro, it makes sense because you're probably running away from something, you know.
Sure.
Thank you for laughing at that weak joke. That was one of my first open mic jokes ever I did in a competition at Metro.
What's the first joke you remember that you thought it was going to be good and it just sucked, and then you just stopped using it?
I don't know. I think a big part of being a comic is the self-denial that it's going to work out, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you have to keep lying to yourself that you're not wasting your time. And so I don't remember the bad ones, but I do remember the first thing I ever said on stage. I had a big flannel shirt on, and I said, there's a lot of pretty women here. I'm glad I wore my good flannel.
And it just got tons of chuckles.
It worked very well. Yeah, because
sick.
I was these huge, I think I had a mohawk. I think I was wearing basketball shorts. Like I was a total feral youth at this point.
Sure.
Because I'd been disillusioned because my big plan to play football was gone. So now it's like, who am I? What's the plan? And that ended up being Chubby Funster.
Is that like a name you went by, or?
No, God, no.
I was like, Jesus.
No way, dude. Yeah. I had a friend who went by Brent the Great until like 3 years ago.
Oh no, someone told you it wasn't so great. So when did you?
The audience.
Did you
continually?
Did you just decide to? Because I'm a college dropout. I just didn't think I needed it. I went to school for business, and I was like, I can either sell things or I can't sell things.
Yeah.
I don't think calculus is helping me. Did you drop out of college? Did you keep going to college? How did that morph?
Well, I was always played drums in bands. So my best friend, who I was in a band with in high school, moved to Ithaca, New York. So there was these periods where like during spring break or during summer break, I would run away to Ithaca, live with him. We would practice our butts off. We shouldn't swear on here, obviously. We would practice really hard. We lived in this anarchist commune in Ithaca, and we had an old slaughterhouse, and we were able to like practice in the slaughterhouse as much as we wanted. So we took that very, very seriously, and I would tour. And then I eventually ended up like dropping out of Metro the first time I could pay my rent, like based on stand-up.
Yeah.
So it was this big lost period that was fueled by a lot of hallucinogens and like, you know, just the chutzpah of being a young man who's never been wrong before, you know?
Yeah.
So like we were like card-carrying anti-capitalist anarchists who were desperately trying to sell merch after shows. Like that just hypocrisy of a young man, which I really reveled in. And then eventually Clay graduated from college, and it was like, okay, we're going to be in Denver full time. And we moved into another like group living situation in Denver where it was 16 of us throwing punk rock shows, avant-garde art shows, like every night of the week.
And you were kind of doing both then, stand-up and music?
Yeah, stand-up and music. But it was definitely like all in every night of the week at open mics and doing shows in Denver, and then touring sporadically with the band here and there.
Sure. When did it switch to being just comedy?
That's a good question. I've been with my wife probably like 11 years ago, because I moved out of that group living home in with my wife like really quick when we were first courting each other. And then it was like, I don't have any weekends left to go do rock and roll shows.
Yeah.
So now it's just stand up nonstop because of the way that I lived on the road and still continue to live on the road now.
Yeah.
I miss it. I would love to play drums in like a Dead Moon-esque, like just real simple, like kind of like gothabilly type thing, or like a Tears in Your Beers, like Western two-step. That would be awesome. But because I can't do blast beats anymore, I don't want to do that stuff anymore.
Why not?
Because it's
too intense.
It's too intense, and also like I don't want to be in a band that makes that kind of music.
Oh, okay.
You know
Your
what I
tastes
mean?
have changed, kind of like Andre 3000 with the flute album.
Well,
that you just put out.
there's a lot of undocumented mental health issues in the world.
Sure.
So I don't know what that flute thing was. God bless him. I think he's just like making music and living in Paris. Like he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to sincerely blast him, but yeah, no, I just don't want to be in a band that's like, you know, singing about Poison Rain, you know?
Yeah.
Or like any kind of political leanings publicly, I think is very embarrassing. So I don't want to be in a band called Red versus Black anymore that had like Trotsky lyrics.
Yeah, you grew out of it maybe. Plus maybe being married had something to do with like you want to settle down slightly and stop just being out with the boys all the time.
No. I mean, I think it's a very rewarding thing to do, to make music with your friends, which is why I think cover bands are so valuable.
Sure.
Because like I have these friends who are like, can you imagine being in a cover band? Ugh, it's big yuck. And I'm like, first of all, don't say big yuck. You're 37. And also, if you can just go out and like be with the boys, be with your friends, doesn't matter the gender, for 4 hours a week, playing your favorite songs, and then like maybe every month you get to go out and play a gig of Sublime covers, and like people give you like free joints, and maybe you get laid. Like, what's wrong with that? You know?
Yeah, I mean,
it's wholesome.
Should do that for the rest of our lives.
For sure. Yeah, how about the beginning of that Misfits song? If you're gonna scream, scream with me. Moments like this never last. That first Misfits song, Hybrid Moments, is the one that I've almost died in a car to like 4 times.
Because you blast it and
you
just
blast
jam
it,
out
and
not
all
pay
of your
attention.
friends are driving, and you're punching each other, you know. And there's like a 40-ounce of Old English that's going around the car, and you hit some washboards in rural Kansas, and all of a sudden you're like almost into the side of the road, into the ditch. That song is the soundtrack to so many near-death experiences.
And those were what all your tours were like at the beginning?
No, the tours in the beginning, luckily we had a big van that we bought off of Clay's dad. And there'd be like 6 of us packed in there with just like a really poorly built Jenga of gear.
Yeah.
And God forbid you hit the brakes because there's 5 people in the back of the van who don't have seatbelts on. And then like, you know, the bass drum falls on one of their heads. I've been bonked in the head by gear so many times in the back of that van.
And that's what made you the man you are today.
Yeah. That's what made me the dangerous monster, is that I have frontal lobe damage. Yeah.
So how did
I'm like Dahmer, local reference, kind of.
So how did everything progress from there? You were touring, but there's a long period from then until when you had to stop touring from the pandemic. Were you just touring straight that all those years? It was just like 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week all over the country, or how did it kind of develop?
Yeah, I was on the road. I think that I've slept not in my bed at home more than I have, or less than I have on the road, if that makes sense. I spent more time in my house than I have on the road since I was like 18, probably.
Did you get your own van with like a twin size mattress in the back to save money the whole way?
No,
or were you
no.
staying in the like fancy Hiltons from the beginning?
I was sleeping on floors. I was sleeping in the car. I was sleeping underneath of a van one time. We'd go on the road and I didn't want to sleep in the van anymore, so I'd sleep underneath. One time in Idaho, I woke up and there was just like a rattling noise, and there was a rattler like 4 feet away from me. Yeah. A lot of just like, you know, the kindness of strangers. I'm talking stand up now. When I was in the band, it was all DIY spaces. So you always got to sleep there afterward.
Oh, sure.
And this was like when quinoa was really just budding. This was an underground thing. So it was always like a quinoa dinner with a bunch of beans. And then, then you got to sleep there. But then on the road for stand up, it was always like, you'd meet someone, or you'd have a friend who went and did the show, and you'd be like, hey, I'm a comic from Denver. You're in New Orleans. I'd like to come to New Orleans for a week and do all the open mics and maybe do some showcases. And they'd be like, sure, I know a guy who's like, you know, and then you'd be kind of like moved around the city. It's like, okay, 2 nights you're going to sleep at this guy's house, and then this next night this dude's out of town, so you can crash in his house, but you can't sleep in the bed, so you can sleep on the couch. And then like this guy doesn't have his kids this weekend, so you're going to sleep in his kid's room. There's a lot of that kind of thing.
Did you have like what was the first time that you had a show that paid you the amount that you were like, wow, I can have a fancy hotel? And after that, could you just never go back?
No, dude, I never did the hotel thing. I take hotels now, like, because usually the club will pay for a hotel.
Oh, sure.
But if they offered like, you can have $100 or we can get you a hotel room, it was always, I'll take the $100 and then I'll just drive 11 hours from, you know, Kansas City to Denver, and then I'll sleep in. We'll sleep in rest stops and stuff. That $100, because when you're making when you're passing a hat at a show and you're making maybe $200, that was a bunch of money. But then when you go from the crawl from like $200 to $400, which is $300 guarantee and $100 for a hotel, you doubled your money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've never been a fancy hotel guy. I love nice things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that how I look is definitely kind of undervalues just the emphasis that I put on like creature comforts, but that I always traded any kind of comfort for like the ability to have a little more cash in my pocket.
What are your favorite creature comforts?
I like very good coffee.
It's not this half and half.
No, this was just a desperate measure for
Oh,
a
okay.
desperate man. I love fine meals. Like I love fine dining. I love very good natural wines. I collect first edition books. Like, yeah, I think my favorite creature comforts are like just the best meal you can have in that moment.
Sure.
And that could be like the best loaf of bread. Like I drove around, I was in Madison the last 2 nights just trying to find like the best croissant in town. I did not find it.
Are you on a tour right now through a whole bunch of places? And
I don't have an
just,
address, dog. I'm just on the road.
You don't have a plan?
No. My wife took 6 months off after residency because she's been in college or residency for 11 years.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm going to take 6 months off because I didn't want to live. And I was like, cool. So we did Australia, did Japan again, did France for 3 weeks, did West France for 2 weeks, just me and her chilling with our friends.
Did you perform at all through any of those? Which actually, I was
yeah.
just in Australia like 3 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
coincidence. Cool.
Yeah, I did stand up every night in Australia, which was much to her chagrin because she was like, I'm going to come with you. It'll be like a vacation. And I was like, yes, but you know what's paying for this vacation? All these shows that interrupt our dinner plans.
How do you line that up? Just like DMs through Instagram to some of these places? You have connections that live there because this Australian comedian came and you were at the same show? Or like, how do you even organize that?
Australia was a production company brought me over there.
Oh, okay.
And then Japan, I was just like, there's a comedy club in Tokyo. I hit them up. They gave me a weekend. Then France, there's a bunch of like, I'm just enamored with Paris. I'm such a caricature of a stupid American who thinks that they've read good books. Cause like, if I could move to Paris tomorrow, I would, but that would be like irresponsible. But there's a bunch of great shows going on in Paris that you can do.
You're the first person I've ever heard say that about Paris. Everyone always says South of France is like the best thing ever.
Nah, dude. So South of France is fine, but West France, Brittany, that's the spot, dude. The best beaches in the world. You can pull mollusks right off the rock. There's like mussels just chilling. You can eat those with a little bit of lemon you bring in the water with you. Like, I've never found a place that's as pretty as West France. But then Paris is like, that's it for me. I remember coming out of the subway in Paris the first time and just like being struck and almost weeping in front of my friends. Like, I've never been hit. It really, and again, I know this is not funny, but I'm a sincere person. It breaks my heart knowing that Paris is over there without me. It's like knowing that you have like a lover across the sea and like you only get to see him like once a year if you're
Long
lucky.
distance
you know?
relationships, man.
Yeah, it's brutal, dude. It's so tough. I would go there in a heartbeat, but
I guess I got to get back there. I've been to Europe a few times, but France has been on the list and I haven't gotten there. Now I guess I'll have to put Paris much higher. So
I don't know what Paris is. It's anyway. Yeah, go ahead. I can talk about it all the time.
Yeah, so you were touring forever. Most people I know who are musicians or, I've known some comedians and stuff too. Eventually they're like, man, I want to take a break. You were kind of forced to take a break. I know we're fast forwarding a whole bunch, but just a lot to get to before you have to get to the plus tonight. Eventually the pandemic hit and you couldn't be performing. Is that when you decided you wanted to start writing, or were you always writing before that? Because you wrote a book. Can you tell me a little bit about the book? I know that was a little while ago at this point, but
yeah, I've always read literature. I love novels from like Sherwood Anderson on is like that's my favorite stuff to read. So I've always been a big reader. My aunt was a librarian. My mom and dad loved books. It was always like a big book house. So I've been writing since I was a kid. But then like I wrote short stories. A lot of that stuff, really like sincere, embarrassing, like, emphasis on the prose, like literature. And then I wrote my book when we lived in Vegas. We lived in Vegas for 2 years during my wife's first 2 years of med school.
Oh, okay.
And like I didn't have any friends and it was 1,000,000 degrees outside. So I just was like forced to be indoors as I was widowed by her in school. And then, yeah, I wrote my first novel there, Running the Light, which you can buy at samtalent.com, TALLENT. And I sign all those and I ship them myself. And I'm really proud of that book. But it came after like writing God knows how many hundreds of thousands of bad words. Then this book came out of me. And I'm really proud of it because it's been like very well received by everyone.
Was that your first book that you put out? And you published it yourself. So it's not like you when you publish it yourself, you don't necessarily have to get the okay from anybody. So was it kind of nerve-wracking to be like, I think this is good and I think it's done. And I'm not getting approval from anybody else. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, well, the only person that I had two people. I had this guy Mishka Shubali. He read it and he was like, "This is great." And then he connected me with his literary agent, which is like very powerful. But he does memoirs, so the literary agent like he sent it out and we got offered like $7,000, and he was like, "Just sell this yourself at shows. You'll make a lot more money." And I was like heartbroken because I wanted to be, I wanted to be nominated for a Man Booker Prize and like get one of those like 30 under 30 lists in like the Paris Review. But anyway, so I put it out myself, and it was like, I didn't know it was good, but I had an idea that it was good. And my dad read it, he copy edited it, and he was like, "This is good," and I put it out. And it's difficult because like when you're writing, you don't know if it could be trash.
Right.
But when you're doing stand up, you know it's good second by second because they're with you or they hate you.
Yeah.
So it couldn't be more opposite, like creative processes for that.
Yeah, I mean,
Processes.
I'm awful at writing. That was like the one subject that I absolutely in college could not get an A. It didn't matter how hard I tried on that one.
Yeah.
And it's because I can, like, when I'm talking with somebody, I can see if they're crazy uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or how I can kind of read the room a little bit. But when I can't see how somebody takes what I say, which is why I'm so bad at texting with people.
Yeah.
I get fights all the time because I'm like, I didn't even think I was being mean. What are you
Right.
talking about? Because I
Sure.
can't see how they're like interpreting what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's just you have to read a bunch so you can like compare your stuff to the best stuff and be like, okay, this kind of holds up a weak candle to this, like, you know, Dennis Johnson short story. And then you just keep reading and reading and reading, and then you can kind of like amalgamate all your favorite influences and synthesize them into something that's like kind of your own, you know? It's like, it's not like you can't see the you know, the crude threads of what you patchworked it together from. It looks more like a jacket that you made.
That's kind of like any artwork, though. You know what I mean?
Oh, for
it's
sure,
like you pull from different references, and the best artists, like, you just can't tell where the reference came from, but they're like the inspiration obviously came from somewhere. So if you had to pick a book, I'm going to give you one book to read. Walker Ryan's a pro skateboarder who is from California. He'd been living in New York for a long time. He just, for the first time, I think, is homeless. Not really homeless. Him and his wife are just traveling internationally all over the place with their baby, which is nuts to me that's why when he's doing it. But anyways, he wrote a book, and there's so many parallels. I interviewed him out in New York, which is why I'm bringing it up. But his book is coming from the point of view of a pro skateboarder. And his is fictional. Well, yours is fictional too, but it's like a podcaster trying to find this skateboarder that went missing or vice versa. But anyways, it's from the perspective of what pro skateboarding actually looks like as a career, with traveling around and seeing the other pros that didn't make the money, that get, you know, run into problems, all these different types of things.
Ramirez's.
Yeah. So it's parallel. So I think that'd be a really good book. So I'll show you because I have a couple copies. But what's a book, if you got to suggest any book?
That sounds great, by the way. I love skateboarding.
Dude,
when I moved to Denver, I moved down there with the two kids who were like the best at skateboarding in my small school. And I've lurked a bunch at Denver Park and Inglewood Park. I was like a pro lurker. In fact, my first comedy special was like heavily influenced by Baker 123. I was like, I told my guy who was my cinematographer, who was one of those kids I moved to Denver with, who was a skateboarder, I was like, I really want this to be reminiscent of Baker 2. So that was like our big, and like PJ Ladd's Wonderful Horrible Life. Like there was a bunch of great skate videos that were just on repeat in my early apartments because we didn't have any money and we had a VHS and we had, you know, that, and we would just like scrape resin and keep watching the same skate videos over and over again.
Man, I mean, I wasn't scraping resin, but I watched the same skate videos a million times. Baker 3 came out in 2005, which I would have been 15 at the time. That was like the era of me getting off the city bus downtown, going straight to the skate shop and hanging out there every single day.
Bro,
and
I remember when Baker 3 came out because we camped for it at 303 Board Shop.
Oh, wild. I wish I would have been to the premiere. I guess the premiere of all those things out in California are absolutely nuts. They actually just rebuilt, I'm going to be done with this tangent after this. They just rebuilt Wilshire at 15. They rebuilt it for a contest.
Wow.
And they had a whole bunch of pros there just like dominating it in one evening.
Did you see that downhole thing by the kid in the Joker costume?
Yeah.
Dude, what the hell?
Yeah.
That was so gnarly.
They've been doing that for a while.
I know, dude.
The Halloween Hellbomb or whatever they call it. Yeah.
But that footage is like sports are awesome. I love team sports.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any sports that really delve into art with the fluidity of movement that skateboarding does.
Yeah.
Like what that kid's up to, like that should be nominated for like a great like performance piece.
Yeah.
Like he's dressed all in the Joker, which is whatever, but then he's just throwing down hammer over hammer, going like 40 miles per hour down that hill. Just, it's so great.
Well, and it shows a lot of the falls, and people are falling and sliding, not with padding, like just totally tearing off all of their skin for 40 feet, and they're not even paying anyone to be in the contest.
Right. Or they're slamming into parked cars.
Or anybody else.
There's footage of one of those hell bombs where a kid goes through the front windshield of a parked car.
Yeah.
It's just... Skateboarding's great.
Dude, when
Justin Dolan's the best ever.
Dude, well, yeah. Did you meet him in Australia?
No, I met him in Denver. He like crashed at our house for like
He stayed at your house.
yeah, for like a very short period of time and just would like smoke cigarettes and
Why? Did you
because
just-
he was in town and we knew some kids who knew some kids and we had like an extra space and it was just
Yeah.
like, do you mind if this guy stays from Australia? And we were like, whatever. And then ended up being Double D and we were like, piss drunks, no way.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's fully in charge of like everything for Baker's distribution out in
That rules.
Australia.
I'm glad he survived.
As far as, well, oh my God, dude, how is he still alive?
Yeah.
So Baker 2G.
This is a boring conversation for everyone else. But
yeah, sorry. Skateboarding. I own a skateboard shop. That's like my background. That's why.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about for anyways, so back to what I was talking about is what is a book that you would suggest other than your own, because we're going to read that, but
Yeah.
just what's one of your favorite books that everybody should go check out?
Dennis Johnson's Angels is my easiest answer to that. It's a literary novel. It's about a bank robbery. It's beautiful. It's such a desolate heartbreaker. But I think that if you want to get into a book and you want it to like be something that you can really plow through, World War Z by Max Brooks is a oral history of the zombie war, and it's awesome. Nothing's more entertaining than World War Z.
And it's
I've
nothing
read
like
it
the
front to
movie?
back and like no the movie. So I thought the movie was fine.
Yeah.
It's Brad Pitt.
Yeah, I
it's
thought it was
cool.
good.
It didn't do the interviews that the book was like so perfect for. But I think World War Z is just a great book to get you back into reading.
Cool. Well, I have a gift for you. You were talking about coffee. I got some coffee.
Oh, thank you, dude.
Yeah. So my buddy Tim,
Yeah.
it's Minimum Wage Tim's Coffee. He went to UWC, went to Eau Claire.
Yeah.
And he plays music in a band in Minneapolis area, but he started this coffee company.
Okay.
And he gave me some to
Oh,
give
that's
to
very
guests.
kind. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. So
Thank you very
minimumwagetims.com. You can go get a subscription where he sends you all the different crazy cool ones he gets from all these different countries. That one's from Honduras.
This is the only coffee that I drink.
Yeah. So I genuinely hope you really, really enjoy it.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
excited. He sent me some extra bags, so I'm about to have some tomorrow.
That's kind of you. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, yeah. How is being on Joe Rogan's podcast? That's like the pinnacle, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. If you do a podcast, I do a podcast. I feel like if I ever was on his, then it's like done. Like it just doesn't really get any bigger.
All of your training you've been doing, every podcast you've done is
Yeah.
just an hour in the gym. So when you can step in there and deal with that blood sport that is Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
it's very daunting, dude. You're having a conversation with you're not talking with a man, you're talking with like Mount Rushmore or the Statue of Liberty.
a
It's
god.
the idea of a
Yeah.
man, you know? It's
Yeah.
literally an icon. And like I did a TV thing with Will Smith and that was surreal, but like I still think that like the Rogan 3.5 hours I did in there, that was like the peak of everything that I've been training for.
Were you sweating profusely the entire time, not knowing what he was going to ask, all the hard-hitting questions about the Dalai Lama?
No, I was not. I mean, he made it very easy. We lit cigar. I mean, he's been so nice to me. He invited me on there. And I remember I drank one of those like Black Rifle coffees, like a quad espresso as I was
Yeah.
waiting for him because I was so nervous.
You're just shaking.
Oh, I was in there wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah, like trying not to defecate in my undies. Like
He
sincerely.
didn't give you a break the whole 3.5
No,
hours?
dude, 3.5 hours straight.
You legitimately didn't give you a break.
No, there's no breaks. If he takes a break, that means he doesn't like you. That's what I was told by his security guys.
Oh,
They were like,
God.
yeah, you were in there for the whole 3.5. That was good. I was like, thank you.
Damn. So what are you currently doing? Because when I was listening to like that, or I listened to other podcasts about you, it was a lot of stuff I was listening to was during the time frame of like, well, shutdown happened. I put my special out. I'd made my book or wrote my book. Now I don't have to go anywhere. And then all of a sudden you're back in Eau Claire. So are you juggling writing another book? Are you just doing this all the time? I know you said you were with your wife kind of traveling around, but like, where are you within your career of what you're trying to do?
I mean, I just got an agent in like April, right?
Is that the
And
best thing or the worst thing ever?
I've been offered agents and managers for a while, but I never liked the ones that came at me. But
Yeah.
this one's like real powerful. And I was like, cool. And then we had this big meeting. I was in like Mont Saint Michel in France. And it was my wife's birthday. And I have this meeting with the entire squad. Like every agent at CAA is on the Zoom call.
Yeah.
And all my managers are on the Zoom call. They're like, so what's a perfect world look like for Sam Talent? And I was like, well, I would quit stand up and I would just move to France and write novels. And they were all like, oh, you're serious? I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, how do we factor into that? And I was like, well, you asked what my perfect world was.
Yeah.
It would be great to be able to quit stand up and just write. But as soon as I say that, like I love stand-up. Stand-up's given me everything in my life, and I'm eternally grateful. And I think that I'll always do it. But like right now, if I took my foot off the gas, that would be so irresponsible. I have momentum now, and like to quit would be real foolish.
Yeah, but now you're getting opportunities for other things because you said you did something with Will Smith. Can you tell me more about that? And have you done other TV?
That was like 2017. It was something for Quibi, which never made it.
Oh, okay.
But it was like a TV show that we filmed, and I was just with Will Smith for 3 days. Just like, he doesn't have any odor. There's no smell to him whatsoever.
What?
Doesn't smell good. Doesn't smell bad. There's just like, it's not even fresh linen or like cotton. It's just, there's no smell to that man, which is crazy.
Wild.
I'm ghostwriting a couple things right now. And I really want to finish my next novel. I have 2 novels that I'm like 60,000 words into each, like 130,000 words total. And I'd love to finish one of those, but I haven't written since May just because I've been on the road nonstop.
You don't write at all when you're on the road.
It's really hard because it's like, okay, do I want to sit in this hotel room in Madison all day, or do I want to go ride a B-cycle around both lakes and like try and find the best cup of coffee, or, you know, I want to ride this bicycle down to this bakery that everyone says has good croissants. So it's just like it's really tough when you're in a unique like liminal space, like and it's a novel experience if you want it to, because so many guys just chill in the hotel room and they lose their minds.
Yeah.
And that's never really been my thing.
Sure.
Like I did some like 26-year-old girl's podcast yesterday in my hotel room.
Sick.
Yeah, but she has like 400 followers, and I was like, sure, I want to do something creative. I'm just chilling.
Yeah.
You hit me up. I was like, yeah, I'll come to a stranger's house in Eau Claire. Like, this sounds like a good thing to do. So yeah, it's tough to write on the road because like you want to go out and you want to experience stuff.
That is one thing that happens when I'm messaging people, because when I go to like when I travel, like I'll do interviews in LA or New York or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's the same conversation of like, so where's cool? Like,
Right.
do you want me to come? Do I have a hotel room?
Yeah.
Like, you want to come to my hotel room? Or am I going into your home?
Right.
Are we meeting in a park somewhere?
Sure.
How do you do your podcast? That's just a long time friend of yours. You do it in person. Are you still doing the podcast? You can't be if you're traveling.
Yeah, we still do it. If we have to, we do Zoom. But like,
okay.
Nathan, I just did 3 weeks in Europe, and Nathan Lund from Chubby Behemoth, my podcast co-host, he came to Dublin and London, so we were able to do him face to face there. And then he also opens for me on the road. So he's flying into Madison tomorrow, so we'll be able to do our 2 pods in the next 3 days, face to face.
Is that kind of how it typically works for touring comedians, where it's just like musicians, where you have somebody go, hey, do you want to go on this whole tour with me and you'll be the opener? And they're like, if you do it on my tour, like, do you usually have the same openers like that where you travel together?
I try to have Nathan open for me at every show with the hopes that the club will see how funny he is, and then he'll be offered an opportunity to headline.
Sure.
And also it's just like being on the road is very chaotic, and to have a little bit of like a foundation, which is your best friend, to be there to open for you. So, you know, like no matter what happens, at least you'll have one more person to either enjoy it with, to celebrate, or to like, you know, lament about after the awful experience.
Does he feel the same way about needing to go find the best croissants? Is he a good partner for that, or does he just sit in the hotel room the whole time?
Well, I buy his meals. Like that's part of it.
Sure.
The headliner should always pay for gas and should always pay for the opener's meals. But like, I always want to go to fancy restaurants, you know?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, I'm really taking a big lump in the checkbook, bringing a 320-pound guy along with my 320-pound frame.
You don't give him a limit where it's like not above 50.
No, because now it's like I have a little bit more expendable income. So it's like, let's order like 3 entrees.
Oh.
You know, like let's just like share stuff. Yeah. He doesn't drink, so I can't get the bottle of wine that I want to get, but like,
because you don't want to drink alone.
I don't want to drink an entire bottle of wine.
Sure.
It's just,
but you take it with you to go.
You can, but then you have old wine, like after you let it breathe for so long. It's just like, it's a real gluttonous thing to do. So yeah, it's tough to, he will also just punish like Del Taco because he's sober, you know? So it's like, I'll have a couple like spotted cows or whatever at the club, and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for bed. And he's like, there's a Domino's that will deliver. And I'm like, okay, go crazy, dude. But we share a hotel room.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, so he'll be ordering like, you know, wings, and I hear him in his next bed like eating wings as I'm trying to read. It's like it's pretty grotesque in there.
So getting more on a more serious note, one thing that I've struggled with a million times, and I still do, is imposter syndrome super bad, where I'll go through spurts where I feel really good and I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to be doing this. Like, oh, it totally makes sense. This person, I do deserve their time because I'm dope. Yeah. And then I feel like I suck other times because I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. Why is this person giving me their time? Do you struggle with that at all?
No.
Did you have a moment where you came to where it just wasn't a problem anymore, or was it just never an issue for you?
There's always rooms where you're hanging out with very cool people and you're like nervous that you're going to be, to show your ass in those situations or be made a fool of. But the beauty of stand-up is like, that if you're good at it or bad, you have all these metrics. You have tickets sold. You have the actual like enthusiasm, the volume of the laughter. Like, it's pretty hard. Like, I know people who have been given opportunities in stand-up that they really didn't deserve, whether they were like local radio DJs who end up getting to open for like these big comics because they don't say no to it. And then they go up there and they eat it in front of like 3,000 people and they get off stage and they're supposed to do 12 minutes. They do 4. They come off. They look like they just like suffered some kind of like shell shock, So like, I think it's really hard to have imposter syndrome in stand-up because you know exactly where you stand. You can watch other people stand up and be like, all right, I'm funny as that person, or, she's funnier than me, whatever it may be. So yeah, I don't think that that's like a big thing for me. There are these kids who do like TikToks and then they end up like, being like booked in a comedy club and they go and they're supposed to do an hour and they do 25 minutes. And then the whole thing's just a big elaborate meet and greet. They do a 2.5 hour meet and greet afterwards so people can come and get a t-shirt photograph with them. Like, I think those people who didn't actually like practice and hone the craft of stand-up, those people can feel it. But like, I've been in the mines for 15 years,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's happening more and more with music and anything else, right? Because people get known based on something on the internet. They don't get found, like, people don't find out about somebody in person nearly as much now. They find out about this person online. And then when they go perform and they don't sound anything like what their song is. Right. You know what I mean? They're just not like prepared. You know, all of a sudden they'll have a song go hot and then they don't even have a whole album out. Right. And they're getting booked for things and they're like,
And the equivalent of that is like the crowd work clips you see from comedians where it's like one of these things go viral and then all of a sudden they have like 300,000 followers after they get some clip that gets 25 million views. And then people are like, oh, that person's coming to Eau Claire. I'm going to go see their show. And then like, they're not actually good. Like, I'm still very nervous every time I go on stage because I'm my hardest critic. If I have a decent set, I want to get off and like punch the plaster. Like, I have to be killing or I'm like, this is a waste of time. I've blown it. Like, I wasted everyone's money and energies to get to the show. Like, I really value anyone who comes to a show. I'm so grateful that they spend the $20 to come out. They plan the night around it. They get the babysitter. They round up their friends. They bring them. Like, I never want to make anyone leave the show going like, that was fine. Sure. It's either like, that was really funny or God, that guy bombed and they're talking about it for like a week. I'd rather have that. I don't want any in between.
Yeah, sure. I always ask, there's one question I ask on every episode. Because when you do things you're passionate about for a living, you get to have really unique experiences, right? Such as hanging out with Will Smith and finding out he doesn't smell like anything or whatever. You get to have a lot of really cool ones. Can you share a story of an experience you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you pursued comedy?
Everything that's ever happened to me has only been because of stand-up. I got to hike a glacier in Alaska because I did a show in a town of 12 people. Like, the mayor was a fan and was like, hey, if you want to come out for the Equinox Festival, like, there'll be like 100 people there and you can stay at my house, in the middle of this like mining town. There was my favorite memory for this is one of my best friends growing up is this kid named David Borey. And he ended up doing stand-up, and he was the best man at my wedding. Like, we're still incredibly close. But one time we were driving from a very bad house show in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where like we made enough money to get the gasoline we needed to go to New Orleans. And some lady gave us some like White Cross, like truck stop amphetamine probably, God. Like the white pills. Sure. And we ate those because we had an 11-hour drive or whatever it was. And I remember the sun was coming up through the swamp and he was in shotgun. The other two comics were sleeping in the back. And we crossed over into the state of Louisiana, like the Welcome to Louisiana sign. And we saw the sun come up through the mangroves or whatever. And I just grabbed him by the hand and I looked over and he had tears running down his face and so did I. And I was like, we did it, man. We did it. Like, we made it. This is a beautiful moment. And there's so many of those that, whether it be like doing stand-up in Bratislava. I did stand-up in Paris for Roman Polanski's son. He invited us back to a house party. Roman Polanski says, hey, you guys got to go party in the garage because it's too loud in here. There's been so many surreal experiences in stand-up that never would have happened if I didn't, pursue it in the way that I did.
And that's why you're never going to stop doing stand-up regardless of if you become the best-selling author that's ever existed.
I think there's probably a more likely case that I'll be like a really good stand-up because I write like very bleak literary novels. Sure. Like, my book is about a comedian, but it's about a comedian who's totally, washed out. He's an effigy of a man just burning without anyone witnessing it. So the stuff that I write's never going to be like, in airport bookstores. I don't think it's going to be beach reads that are like embraced by Reese Witherspoon,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the beautiful thing of like nowadays is you can just put out anything you want. Like you don't have to have approval like I was talking about. So to become a stand-up comedian these days, things have changed from when you came up. You're not that much older than me. Neither of us are all that old, but still times change fast.
Yeah.
Right? Where before it was you had to go to all these open mics, which I think is still obviously a great idea. But if you were starting over from now, how would you do things differently now than how you did coming up?
Oh, I would care about the internet. I was like, I'm just going to be the funniest guy in the room, and hopefully people will remember that, and like they'll come back. Next time I come to Omaha, they'll bring some friends. Like I always grew it the same way my band did, which was like 20 people at the first show, hopefully double that, hopefully double that, hopefully double that within the next like 4 years you come back. But yeah, I would build a YouTube. I would do TikTok. I would have started a podcast in 2005 when I started,
Yeah.
I have a lot of hindsight that went into it because I was just so obsessed with like being the best live performer that I could be, and I was like, all this other stuff is lame, and I don't want to be anyone who's ever doing a front-facing video into my phone camera promoting my dates in Cleveland.
Sure.
But there's all these like very embarrassing things that you have to do, and the idea of having integrity in show business is a totally like naive thing to have. So I like maintain some semblance of integrity to the ultimate failure of a lot of aspects of being a modern entertainer.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a balance to everything. I always say that everything has a spectrum. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
And I'll keep this skateboarding thing incredibly brief. But like Wes Kramer, who's an icon, just got let go from DC Shoes because he
Why the tongues weren't big enough? Didn't have puffy enough tongues?
Dude, they need to learn from the D3 with Osiris. But because he doesn't have social media.
Yeah.
And he just refuses to have social media. So he's a legend in skateboarding, and DC was like, nope, this is a requirement.
Yeah.
And it makes sense as to why, right? Because they don't put out full-length videos. In general, like how many people are going to watch your full stand-up versus how many people are going to see one random joke on TikTok or whatever platform, right? One has way more reach than the other. So it's just looking at the system and going, I know that I don't love this particular thing, but if you just don't play the game, you're going to lose the game entirely. So it's like, how can you balance what you want to be doing, realizing every job's a job, right? You want to travel the country. You don't want to drive as many hours as you do or whatever, right? There's parts of it you don't like doing it, but you have to be able to incorporate those things. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you give a shout out directly to like, where can we best support you? samtalent.com, you have a book and stuff, but give us like, where can people go follow you? Where best should they follow you? How can they support you?
Yeah, I mean, if you just follow at Sam Talent, Tallent on Instagram, that's probably the best way to maintain some idea of where I'm going to be. And then all my tour dates are on samtalent.com. You can buy the book there. There's an Audible original for free if you have an Audible subscription called Attaboy. It's another novella I wrote. And look out for my new special. It's coming out December 26th.
Yeah, and then send them a DM and get them on your podcast.
Yeah.
That's
or
all it
just
takes.
even better, like share one of my clips. So that way when I go through the DM requests, I see that you like shared something, and then I'm like, all right, cool, this guy's invested or she likes it. So then I'm more like eager to like respond,
That's a secret I've learned is if you want to get a hold of somebody, come at it from more than one angle.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this made so much sense because you live here. You're like,
right.
You're going to be in my hometown of Eau Claire. I was like, well, I'll go talk to this psycho who knows about Eau Claire, This sounds like fun.
All right, well, we got to give them one more clip to be able to share because I have to cut things, but I need at least one joke, and I'm really bad at pickup lines. I don't have any good ones, and I think those make for perfect sound bites. So what's a pickup line that you have that we can end the show with?
I don't know, dude. I've been out of the game so long. I've been very happily monogamous with my wife for 12 years.
All right, best one-liner joke that you can give me.
Oh, best one-liner. I mean, this is like for the public airways,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of... I'll tell you a joke that an old guy just told me recently.
Deal. Perfect.
Okay. So there's this dude in a hotel room, and he's in the shower in the hotel room, and he goes to get out of the shower, and he's kind of fumbling around. He doesn't have his glasses on. So he reaches out, and he thinks that he's grabbed the shampoo bottle on the counter there. And he picks it up, and all of a sudden... this genie pops out of it. So the guy grabs a towel and he wraps it around himself, and the smoke clears, and the genie's like, you've rubbed the lamp, and now I will grant you 3 wishes. And the guy's like, 3 wishes, and the towel falls off. The genie looks down at his genitals and he says, oh, whoa, 2 wishes. So That's the joke that a guy just told me.
Wonderful.
The guy has an enormous phallus in the joke. Yeah.
I get it.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. I'm excited to see this show. Thank you so much for coming over here.
Yeah.
You got to go grab some food and then make us all laugh later.
If you go to Panda Express, probably, so I can get some vegetables.
Of all the restaurants in Eau Claire, Panda Express is the winner.
I just need to get that super green,
Yeah, they've got the best food.
They got brown rice, they got chicken that's not like fried, and then they got those greens. It's a great road hack.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.